This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
Hello and welcome to what is a rainy Zandvoort. Who would know that would come to the beach and it would be raining? Yes, this is round 14 of the Formula One World Championship, and as I stand here, to the left is the beach, the rolling dunes that throw sand all over this track, and to my right, about 20 miles over that way, is Amsterdam, which was absolutely kicking last night. It was a great atmosphere, and 100,000 fans have poured into this circuit to see their hero, to see the local man, Max Verstappen, once again try and be on top. He's on top by quite a considerable margin, though. Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator.
Hello.
He's doing a great job this year, so good, in fact, that some people would say they're a little bit tired of him winning, but he's got a good margin, hasn't he?
Absolutely. I thought you were saying, I've done such a good job, Jenny, for a moment.
You have, absolutely. Let's praise all of the people who have been here and done all of the 13 rounds so far. 12.
Oh, stop it, Jen. Well, it's fantastic to hear you intro us, and you're absolutely right, though. Max Verstappen has a 125-point gap at the top, and he's going for the equaling record, 9 consecutive race wins he'll be hoping to achieve by the end of this weekend, which will equal Sebastian Vettel's run from back in 2013. And it does feel like it is a bit of an unstoppable Max Verstappen for the remainder part of this season. He could well go on to win every single race. So unfortunately for us, I know, unfortunately for us, I think we're looking behind at the Perez's, the Alonso's, the Hamiltons, the Leclerc's to see how we can enjoy the remainder of this season. And I think we will get some good racing, though. Qualifying looks fairly tight based off of what we've seen in practice. It's not a foregone conclusion that Verstappen might get pole, but in race pace he does seem to have the edge so far from what we've seen in the first 2 practice sessions.
Yeah, and Harry, don't bring us all down, because there's a man dressed in orange on the big screens that's revving the whole of the audience and the Netherlands up. So let's remain with that mood so far. Lando Norris did top FP2 yesterday by 0.02 of a second, so that gives us some hope. Rosanna Tennant is going to be in the pit lane for us today, and Rosanna, whilst it was business as usual, it was quite an extraordinary FP2 as well.
Yes, it was, wasn't it? Great to be standing alongside you, Jenny, as we look over, as you say, an amazing track. The fans have been here all morning. But you're right, where we're standing now, I'm just looking at turn 3, Hugenholtz. That was where Oscar Piastri, Lando's teammate, came a cropper yesterday, losing the rear of the car and crashing off. And it was then Daniel Ricciardo who really had the biggest disadvantage. He came to a stop, said he had 2 options, avoiding Oscar or going into the wall, and so he went for the wall option, and unfortunately had a really bad accident, breaking a metacarpal in his hand, and so he won't be here today. But instead we have Liam Lawson subbing in the AlphaTauri. So lots to talk about at the end of FP2, or really a few hours after as well. We were having dinner, wasn't it, that we found out that poor Daniel Ricciardo had his hand in plaster cast.
Yeah, tough break for him in every sense of the word. Sorry to bring that pun to it, but it wouldn't be me if I didn't. Alice Powell, the sun has come out. You know what it takes to win around here. W Series winner in 2021. Liam Lawson, he's got a tough job on his hands. Tell us a little bit about him and how hard it's going to be.
Yeah, so he's raced here before. He raced here last year in Formula 2. He was 3rd place in Formula 2 last year, so he's got good experience. He's been racing out in Japan in Super Formula this year, so he's still getting seat time, but that's going to be nothing compared to jumping in a Formula 1 car, let alone on a wet circuit. The other drivers have obviously had 2 practice sessions under their belt, so it's a big ask for him, and it's not a hard track. It's one of those old school circuits as well, so it's going to be particularly difficult, but he just needs to take the approach of go out there, don't go a bull in the china shop and really try and impress everybody and dance all over the place. He just needs to try and learn as quickly as possible, but keep it on the black stuff, because that's going to be the only way he's going to be able to learn and take in information. He'll obviously have spent plenty of time on the simulator. The teams have pretty impressive simulators back at their bases, so he would have spent plenty of time on that, but there's nothing like actually sitting on track in the car and going around in the real thing. So he just needs to stay on the black stuff, because that will then make sure that he's going to get plenty of information and time under his belt, because that's going to be the only way that he's going to learn and progress.
Well, not long until the session starts. We'll hear plenty more from Alice as we go through it. Andrew Benson, BBC's chief F1 writer. It's tough for Daniel Ricciardo. He had 2 sessions out there racing back with the AlphaTauris, and now sidelined for who knows how long.
That's right. I mean, he might not be out that long, Jenny. I mean, we don't know how bad the brake is in his hand. And let's not forget that Lance Stroll raced in the first couple of Grand Prix this year with 2 broken wrists. So, I mean, it's obviously bad enough to take him out of this weekend, and you would imagine if it's bad enough to take him out of this weekend, it's going to take him out of Monza next weekend too. But who knows? Formula 1 drivers do remarkable things when it comes to injury and physical fitness. So I wouldn't rule him out being in Singapore, even if that would be a really tough track, about as tough as it gets to come back to with any kind of hand injury. In terms of Liam Lawson, he's really up against it today. It's really, really wet this morning. There's a bit of blue sky, although the blue sky that was there has just turned black again. I think I was wetter this morning than I've been at a Grand Prix, other than perhaps 2 times in my entire life. That's how wet it was. I won't describe various items of clothing soaking wet.
You're going into a lot of detail here,
It's been a drenching morning, and it's going to be a very interesting session.
Sun is shining though, drivers and cars are out, so let's hand over to Harry Benjamin.
Thank you very much, Jenny Gow. Yes, FP3 is underway, and for those who wish to do a sync-up, it's 58 minutes and 15 seconds remaining of this final free practice session of the weekend, and straight away out in these wet conditions, Max Verstappen and Liam Lawson, who is really being dropped in at the deep end this weekend in that AlphaTauri. Both have gone out on the full wet tyre, and Alice was mentioning Liam Lawson, for those perhaps unfamiliar, the 21-year-old from New Zealand has participated in a couple of Grand Prix weekends so far. In terms of last year was in a Mexico FP1 session and Abu Dhabi FP1 session with the AlphaTauri team, and currently racing in the Japanese Super Formula Championship, and of course backed by Red Bull as their official reserve. And so he is in for the injured Daniel Ricciardo, and this is the sound of Lawson as he comes across the line to begin his first flying lap to get to grips with these tricky conditions here at this Zandvoort track. Now, the big discussion that we were having before coming on air in our production meeting was brought to us by our producer Paddy. When was the last time we had 2 drivers in a Grand Prix weekend where both their first name and last name started with the same letter? We've got Liam Lawson, Alice, in this one, and Alex Albon. Any other ideas? Sir Sterling.
Yeah, I'm counting that. Okay, I know Benny's going to say no, doesn't count.
It definitely doesn't count. I got Alberto Ascari pretty soon, but
pretty soon.
I had to look down the list, and the rest of them are pretty niche.
Well, we want to know. So we've sort of been doing a little look around, but I definitely think there's some obvious ones that we've missed. So hashtag BBC F1. Drivers in Formula 1, they have to have participated in a Formula 1 session throughout the weekend. First name and last name both starting with the same letter. Hashtag BBC F1. This is FP3 and it's gripping content. Liam Lawson has made continued progress. Absolutely, FP3 is just underway. The last practice session before we get stuck into qualifying at a wet and rainy Zandvoort. And the big news is Daniel Ricciardo, after coming back a couple of races ago, is now out for the rest of the weekend with a broken hand after having a crash in yesterday's practice session. The rookie Liam Lawson is taking his place, but it does look like business as usual in the home garden of Max Verstappen, who is currently fastest and looking fast for the rest of the weekend. Just a little bulletin there for the Main 5 Live, and for all the hardcore fans staying with us here on 5 Sports Extra, and wherever you are listening to us, it is actually Verstappen fastest, but only 2 lap times have been set so far. 1:27.5 on the full wets is Verstappen. So, Alice, clearly unsurprising that Lawson's gone out early doors, but everybody then wanting to get a good grip of the conditions.
I don't know what happened there. Suddenly just lost no grip.
And that was Max Verstappen, who just had a little bit of a hairy moment coming into the banked left-hander of turn 3, lost the rear, tried to correct it, Alice, and then just nearly skirmished the wall.
Yeah, he was on the white line and on the paint, and then just got a bit of a swapsy around, just managed to keep it out of the barrier. Wouldn't have really done much damage. He was going at a very slow pace, but he has driven through the mud that's been kicked up by the Porsches this morning. I was watching the Porsche practice session that was in real torrential rain. So he's now come into the pits. Slick tyres have gone on, but he won't be going out on those. The mechanics will wheel him back into the garage, and they will then put wets back on.
It's raining quite a lot right now.
Copy that. Copy that.
That was Liam Lawson in that Alpha Tower. He has come back into the pit lane. Yeah, it's really on and off raining. It really was monsoon conditions this morning as we were walking in to the track. And there was a little bit of hope. There was some blue sky peeking through the overcast grey clouds, but it does look like it is looming more grey by the minute. And we're near the North Sea coastline. It's literally over the dunes, and it looks like it's coming in from there. So I think it's going to be on and off. But it's good to see them getting out here because they need the track conditions. They need to know what it's like because qualifying will be soon after this.
Exactly that. And I spoke to some locals this morning and they told me that there was no more rain expected for the rest of the morning. So even the locals don't know about the weather. So as we're seeing, Perez has just taken the escape road. Yeah, that's at turn 11 and 12. So both Red Bulls have had excursions already this morning. But Lando Norris has decided to go out on the intermediate tyres. And that's a tough crossover because it still looks fairly wet, but that just shows that really you only need those wet Pirelli tyres when it is really bad, when there's a lot of standing water down. But clearly the intermediate working not so bad for Lando Norris. He was looking pretty fast, but Andrew?
No, I was just going to say, I didn't mean to stop your flow there, Alice. I was just going to indicate that I was going to carry on after you. Yeah, I mean, it's become a bit of a joke, the wet tyre. They call it the safety car tyre because basically it's only ever used behind the safety car. The drivers find it doesn't have enough grip they always want to be on the Inter as soon as they possibly can. And usually when it's so wet that you need the extreme wet, then they won't run the race because the visibility is so poor. And it's just not a very good tyre. So that's why Piastri now as well, we're seeing, and Lando Norris, the McLaren drivers, are out on the Inters. We see Esteban Ocon on the timing screens also got the Inters. They always want the Inter on as soon as they possibly can because it's so much a better tyre than the full wet.
Yeah, well, Pirelli have actually given the teams of each driver another set of the intermediate tyre for the rest of the weekend, or for today, certainly due to the weather conditions. But at the moment, 7 lap times on the board. Verstappen heads it up at Bottas, Albon, Zhou, Norris the only one on the intermediate, Sargent and Lawson, the 7 drivers that have set a lap time. So, shall we pay a visit then for the first time in the pit lane? Rosanna Tennant.
Harry, it is very soggy down here, I have to say. It's actually not raining at the moment, but you'd be forgiven for thinking it is, because as the cars rocket down the start-finish straight, the rooster tails and the spray coming off as one just goes past us, it flies up into the air, and the crowd, who have been fantastic and I know are going to continue to be over the course of the weekend, are getting covered in spray. A lot of them have got ponchos on, a lot of them, as you'd expect, dressed in orange, but my goodness me, it's getting a little bit soggy for everyone. But then contrast that with glorious sunshine. Honestly, it is changing from minute to minute. Umbrellas up, umbrellas down, ponchos on, ponchos off. This is going to be an interesting session. Lando Norris just came past me on the Inters. He's back in the garage, and both Red Bulls have come in on those full wet tyres. It's going to be a hard hour's work for the mechanics out in this soggy weather, as it is for the pit lane reporter.
Oh, keep strong, Rosanna, keep strong. Find yourself a nice hot cup of tea somewhere.
No, not in the middle of a live session.
Actually, Rosanna, I'm going to cut you off now because we've got a yellow flag out there. We've got a Haas in the grass facing the wrong way, and it looks perilously close to the wall as well, and that is on the exit of turn 3. Hugenholtz, the left-hander, banked corner of about 19 degrees, and it's Kevin Magnussen. Yes, yesterday in FP1 it was the other Haas of Nico Hülkenberg who found the wall coming into the final 2 corners, but now it is Kevin Magnussen, and that has brought out a red flag.
Sorry guys.
And that was Kevin Magnussen on the radio. Sorry, guys. He brought out a red flag, and he was only on an outlap on the intermediate tyre. So has he
there on the front left?
Has he done a Verstappen, do you think, but not been able to catch it?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like from the pictures we are getting to see at the moment that he has gone into the barrier probably similar to where Verstappen started to lose the rear. So, yeah, we'll have to wait till the replay, but it looks like that maybe he's just got a bit of a swapper on and it's shot him to the right and gone into the barrier. So we are having a little look now. It's at turn 3. It's quite early on and just spins him round quite early in the corner. And as you said, Harry, it's on his outlap as well.
Yeah, this is the sound on board with Kevin Magnussen then. So he's quite tense to be making his way around because he's on an outlap, turns it into the left-hander of turn 3, loses the rear and does actually make contact with the walls. He does a spin, the front left takes a whack to the outside wall, and then he comes to a halt on the grass on the exit. So an end to FP3 for Kevin Magnussen, which is not what Haas wanted or needed. A car out early doors in free practice yesterday with Nico Hulkenberg, another one out today with Kevin Magnussen.
It was quite a slow spin, wasn't it? It was almost one of those...
A bit helpless, really.
Yeah, I think he just literally must have just picked up a little bit too much throttle. Tyres are obviously still cold. They would have come out the blankets, but as soon as the car would have dropped down and gone on the wet ground, I mean, the air temperature here is only 16.9 degrees, track temperature only 22.5, so still pretty, well, say cold for a summer's day here in Zandvoort. So as soon as he would have driven out the pits, the temperature would have really dropped out of those tyres, and it's shown that there at turn 3.
OK, well, red flag in FP3, and the clock continues to count down. When there's a red flag during a practice session, in qualifying, everything would be halted. So all cars back into the pits. So it seems like a perfect time to revisit drivers with the same letter to start their first and last name on the hashtag BBCF1. Now, there's some on here that we shouldn't have missed. Actually, it's shocking. Formula Stu has said Stefan Sarrazin made his only F1 start at Interlagos in 1999.
Is that really so shocking, Harry?
I
mean,
think
it's not
it's
exactly
shocking.
a massive name.
I'm shocking. Scott Speeds.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That is bad. The Toro Rosso American F1 driver. Leila Lombardi, of course, the only woman to score a point in Formula 1. Kamui Kobayashi. How could we have forgotten Kamui Kobayashi? Oh, that's
why
from,
I wouldn't be very
from
good
Laura.
at quiz games.
Sergei Sorokin. That comes from CFC Nonny, hashtag BBCF1.
Sergei Sorokin. Do you know, I've got a bit of stat for you. Sergei Sorokin, the only teammate Lance Stroll has beaten in his entire career over a season.
Oh, burn.
These are absolutely brilliant. Jack has said Ricardo Rosset, JV, Colin Chapman.
Do you want to hear a story about Ricardo Rosset?
Absolutely.
He wasn't very good. He was good in Formula 3000.
That's a great story.
He won races. No, we'll get there. And he was so not very good that what turned out to be one of his final Grand Prix, the Tyrrell Mechanics, was the team he was racing for, they changed the sticker on his car and reversed the first and last letters of his surname.
Oh.
You can all work it out.
Okay.
Yep.
Excellent stuff.
Move on.
This just coming again from Formula Stu, who's absolutely on it. Hans Heyer, and that's the stat for Hans Heyer, is he's the only driver ever to have taken part in a Grand Prix where he had a DNS, or did not start, did not finish, and a disqualification all in the same one. So well done, keep them coming. Roxy says Ascari. Yes, we have said that. Benson got that one eventually. So there you go, they are added to the list along with Liam Lawson, who becomes the latest member of the first name last name, both beginning with the same letter, gang, and Alex Albon also part of that on the grid currently. We're currently witnessing scenes of Kevin Magnussen walking back through the paddock, helmet on, after crashing his Haas in turn 3, and it is wet, it is damp underfoot. Everybody who was out early doors was on the wet tyre or trying out the intermediate, which is what Kevin Magnussen was doing. This is the sound you can hear. We're just being shown a replay once again of how Magnussen crashed. It's the same corner that we saw both Oscar Piastri and Daniel Ricciardo find the wall in the dry yesterday. Was it again a bit of the did he touch the paint on the outside,
I don't
or was
think
it
he
just
did. It's almost
cold
like
tyres and wet conditions?
Yeah, cold tyres, wet conditions, and I think he just picked up a little bit too much throttle. Yeah, he's not really
Even the
he's
Aston
close
Martin
to
in
the
front
paint,
had a little
but
bit of a moment on the exit as
I
well.
find that the lines these days, from when I sort of was racing in single-seaters prior to sort of W Series, that the paint now almost has like this grippy texture to it, so the lines aren't actually as slippy as they used to be. And I think I've been told that is for bikes, so there's bikes racing, and to stop people spinning on white lines. So I've actually gone on track walks and poured water on them just to make sure that is true, and I can say that is correct. They do have that grippy texture, so maybe it is that paint. That's why Verstappen it touched the paint, so maybe that painted design out there on the outside there of turn 3 doesn't have that texture. But I think most of the white lines these days do have that sort of coarse texture to them, just to stop people spinning on them.
Well, everyone in the stands is still fairly happy and dancing away. The music is blaring, and there is a bit of a gust, and the wind and the flags at the top of the grandstands are certainly blowing quite heavily. I think the rain has definitely sort of stopped for the time being, although it's still looking quite grey.
But just looking out the commentary box window, it's almost like in sync. They've all just put their ponchos on at the same time.
Oh, I jinxed it there.
You've jinxed
maybe.
that one, Harry.
Well, they're still dancing around the track as well as we continue into this red flag, which hopefully won't last too long. Rosanna Tennant, is it still raining where you are?
It is, Harry.
okay.
Yes, it has started again, and you're talking about the people getting their ponchos on. They are all still there. No one's going anywhere. As actually, an Alfa Romeo has just started to head out down to the end of the pit lane, but the fans are staying strong, standing up in their seats, trying to get a little view of what's going on in the garages. A lot of mechanics just waiting to send their cars out, but it's the Alphas who've decided to go first. Valtteri Bottas ahead of Zhou Guanyu. Quite a bit of work for those guys to do in this remaining practice session. I have a question on the initial game.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, obviously we're in the Netherlands, so I don't know where this stands. Does Guido van der Garde, or Gard?
Oh, that's a good one.
Where does that one fit? Is he GG or is he GVG?
We were debating that, Rosanna, actually. It depends on, I guess, it depends on the style of your publication, whether you capitalise the V or not.
Would you?
I think on the BBC, in certain circumstances we would, in certain circumstances we wouldn't.
You see, that's the confusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think when he was racing in Formula One, when they put the three letters of their name, for Verstappen, Bots for Bottas, I think Guido had GVG. So, because what else would you do? You can't have GVDG.
GAR.
Well, yeah, Rosanna,
was it VDG?
Isn't he down in the pit lane doing
He
something
is.
Dutch
Do you know
telly?
what?
Can we
There's
ask
my
him?
mission. There is my mission to keep me cheerful on this soggy morning. I'm going to go and see if I can find Guido, and it may be throughout the weekend that I get the feedback on how he likes to be referred to.
I think so. I think we need the exclusive interview on this from Guido van der Garde. So we want him on the airwaves, confirming or not whether he wants to be part of the first name, last name, same letter gang.
You can rely on me for some top tier journalism. I'll get to it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Rosanna. And actually, CFC Noni just got back in touch. How could we all miss Alex Almeida from the 1956 Spanish Grand Prix? So another one that's just gone beyond our heads as well. Rubes, Carl Kling, Clive Mattison, Derek Daly. Excellent shout.
None of them have got the one that really stood out for us when we went down the list, have they? Which is it's a real niche driver name, but an incredibly famous Formula One name.
No, I think we did get that one. I think we did. Somebody said, I believe, Colin Chapman.
Oh, did they say that?
Yeah,
Yes,
Oh, they've got that.
JB.
Well done.
Colin Chapman practiced for the 1956 French Grand Prix, crashed and didn't take part in the race.
Does that count then?
Here's Lando Norris.
So is the rain going to just get worse from now on? It should continue like this in the next few minutes, and then potentially a small break. We think it's around 10-15 minutes of rain like this.
Okay, that's Lando Norris and his engineer giving us a weather update then. So they think a little bit more rain to continue in this capacity. Does that count? Well, you know what, let's ask Guido van der Garde when we get him and see if he agrees or not. We are back underway. Red flag is now over. Kevin Magnussen's Haas has been cleared from the track, and he is now out of this session. So we are one car down, 40 minutes and 43, 42 seconds remain of this FP3 session. Verstappen is currently the fastest with a 1:27.5, set on the wet tyre from Bottas, Albon, Zhou, Norris the top 5. He's on the intermediate. Sargent, Lawson and Piastri, the 8 drivers who have set lap times. And Lewis Hamilton is currently out on track at the moment on the intermediates and going personal best in Sector 1.
I saw something really interesting from Hamilton then. So through the Hugenholtz corner, which is where Magnussen crashed and where Verstappen nearly crashed, the normal line is right high on the banking, which is how Verstappen got into trouble because he touched the white line, as we were saying. And Magnussen, I don't think was quite on the white line, was he? But he was right on the high line. Hamilton took the middle line through that corner on this lap where he's gone.
Staying off the rubber.
Exactly, staying off the rubber, and which is the opposite of what normally happens in the wet. Normally the inside line is the racing line in a corner, and drivers go outside the racing line often to stay off the rubber, as you say, Alice. But in Hugenholtz it's the other way around. It just really caught my eye. I thought that was interesting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the other things that we were thinking about coming in, and it is Hamilton first.
Okay, Lewis, we think this rain will intensify. There is a dry window coming later, so suggest we box into this lap.
So it sounds like they've got a totally different weather system to McLaren. That's
and he ignored them by the looks of it, because he hasn't pitted, has he?
Yeah, he's having too much fun out there at the moment.
And as Toto Wolff and reserve driver Mick Schumacher watch on from the garage, a lot of rumours around Mick Schumacher at the moment in the driver market with a Williams drive perhaps touted. With Logan Sargent being a bit under pressure, the American rookie, for that seat. But Hamilton continues his way round as Max Verstappen tentatively makes his way through the chicane, the right-left chicane of 11 and 12. Out to the inside curve a little bit, and that just unsettles the car slightly.
The only video of a wet driver around this circuit that I could find was Max Verstappen back in 2014 when he was testing in an NF3 car. So that was the old circuit, of course, but I'm guessing that he's probably one of the only drivers that has been around here in the wet, as Charles Leclerc pops to the top of the times and then totally outbrakes himself going to turn 1, just about stops before heading into the barriers. He's rolling backwards now. He's on the wet tyre. So he has just gone nearly 3/10 quicker than Max Verstappen.
Yeah, and he manages to find the escape road, which allows you to not have to go through the gravel and rejoin. We're just going to ride on board with Charles Leclerc and see how that incident began. So coming into the braking zone of turn 1, tries to turn in, and it just doesn't want to turn. That front right locking up. And then he really has to slam on the brakes to avoid the wall.
At that point, he's going, please stop, please stop. And that's the thing, when you lock a tyre, to get that tyre to release, you actually have to release the brake. So then you speed up a little bit, but then hope that then that tyre should then regain some traction and that it will unlock. And then you have to then try and modulate the brake to try and make sure that you slow down and not lock up again. So that's why he came off the brake and then able to then get it stopped, as Max Verstappen has just set purple middle sector and on the intermediate tyre goes 1.5 seconds quicker than Lando Norris.
Yeah, so it's Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc. Hulkenberg has put his house up into 4th ahead of Bottas, the top 5 at the moment, with a mixture of intermediate and wet tyres out there at the moment. James, hashtag BBCF1, has said, what about the French driver Jean-Pierre Jarier? His middle name was Jacques or Jacques too, so he's got the full set. He's got the triple, drove in 71 and 73 to 83, so we are looking at the moment for drivers who both have the same letter for their first and last name to celebrate the arrival of Liam Lawson. So we were wondering though, Rosanna, down in the pits, does Guido van der Garde count? I'm assuming this is the big interview of the weekend we've got lined up now.
Look, I'm going to have to keep you waiting a little longer for the big interview, but if you're looking for a double, treble or even a quadruple, Guido is your man. His middle name's Guido Gijsbertus Gerrit van der Garde.
No, you're joking.
Oh, yes.
His parents were having a laugh, weren't they?
4 G's for Guido. I mean, that's brilliant.
4 G's. Are you having a laugh? Come on, Guido. That is fantastic news. Have you got eyes on him yet or not?
No, I'm trying to
Actually,
spy
he's probably
him.
in the commentary box.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. So maybe I can ruin his lunch break and get that. What about Jean-Pierre Jabouille?
Ooh, excellent shout.
Or do you count the JP?
I think that counts for Rosanna, for
thanks.
sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
Andrew, thank you so much.
That's got the Andrew Benson seal of approval. So
then surely Guido's is...
Then surely we should allow Guido van der Garde, I suppose.
No, but that's different, you see, because that's a surname that's made up of 3 constituent parts. Set 3 separate words, whereas Jean-Pierre is one name, even though it's 2 words. See what I mean?
Yeah.
It's hyphenated.
We need to have a look at the rules and regulations on this.
Get out the Is the FIA got a rule book for this?
Rubes, Hans Hermann, F1's oldest podium sitter. Innes Island, that's from Doug. Federico Fernandez Ferrucci is another one. So we are enjoying these, so keep these in mind.
Yeah.
But we are going to go back to track action now because it's all going off. We've got an Alfa Romeo of Zhou Guanyu beached in the gravel.
It's gonna be a red flag.
And that is going to, it's absolutely a red flag straight away. And just before that, we saw one of the Alpines skirt through the gravel through the right-left chicane at 11 and 12. But Zhou Guanyu then in the gravel, facing the wrong way with an excellent view of the high dune above him. And surrounded by fans on that dune overlooking it. We're getting a replay now. He comes into the right-hander. He's going very slowly, and this is coming into the last couple of corners of the track.
That's the same accident as yesterday with Hulkenberg, isn't it? He's got lost at almost exactly the same point at the apex of that corner.
Yeah, and unfortunately for Zhou, he hasn't travelled as far as Nico Hulkenberg did, and he's got that beached. Well, actually, fortunately, because I think Hulkenberg did have a little touch with the wall, didn't he, as well? So actually, it's better fortunes for Zhou Guanyu. And the gravelly sound you may have heard was Pierre Gasly, a replay. He was the Alpine driver that had a jaunt through the gravel. He's now back into the garage, as will everybody else, because the red flag is out for Zhou Guanyu's car. He was spinning up the rear wheels. He was putting his foot on the throttle to try and find any kind of traction, but well and truly beached. So these conditions, Alice, really catching some drivers out, and this is difficult time to do that, because if the weather charts are to be believed, either way, there's going to be rain, I think, on and off throughout the day, and one small shower can immediately cause you hassle. And because we don't have any runoff area here, we said this yesterday, there's no track limits worries because the gravel is right there ready to meet you.
I'm not complaining. I mean, it spices things up, doesn't it? We love a bit of wet weather, and that's the nature of this circuit. As I said, old school circuit. If you just make that one small mistake, like Zhou Guanyu has demonstrated there, the gravel's pretty deep. I think we said that yesterday on commentary, how it just about slowed Hulkenberg down from hitting the barriers too hard, and instantly he was then, Zhou Guanyu, beached in the gravel as the marshals are sweeping the gravel that's strewed across the track. But I think, that, and I bet if you spoke to every single driver on that grid, they would prefer to have a circuit like this instead of going to Paul Ricard in the wet or something like that, because that just adds that excitement to driving track. It's an extra challenge, and everyone wants to be challenged. Every driver wants to be challenged, even including Max Verstappen, even though he's driving off into the distance. Hasn't got much challenge at the moment. But, it's one of these circuits that your mistakes get punished, and I think every driver would quite happily still have the rain out and be driving around this difficult circuit.
Yeah, with this gravel, you don't get a second chance, and if you do, it's luck. If you're able to carry that speed through the gravel, then you're in luck and you live to fight another day. But you don't get any chances when it comes to the gravel, which is a fascinating characteristic of this circuit. The other thing I wanted to mention is we do have the rain still coming down, but because this is quite a banked racetrack with those huge inclines on turn 3 and through 13 and 14 and turn 1, and we are kind of a little bit sheltered, I suppose, as well, when it comes to the wind right in the dunes. Does that help when it comes to things like the drainage of the track as well? So we're not seeing actually too many sort of rivers developing, because we had, very heavy rain at the start of the day for sure, and it has continued. And at some other tracks, maybe more modern tracks where there is a lot of runoff, you would get rivets running across the track and you get worries of aquaplaning. It doesn't seem like we've really had that issue here.
No, I'm watching the Porsche session earlier on when it was really chucking it down with rain. There was a few rivers running across up to turn 2. There was a few puddles on the apex of like 7 and going through sort of 9. So there were sort of puddles forming, but we didn't get that sort of flooding you know, maybe the track is pretty good for drainage. And I was told as well that it does dry fairly quickly here. So looking outside, the flags are blowing at a good rate and all pretty much in the same direction. So I think it will dry fairly quickly if we don't get any rain, because it is still fairly humid outside.
Bastien Bus, Porsche driver.
Yes.
But a Porsche driver, not an F1 driver. Red flag conditions then. 30 minutes remaining of this session. Verstappen set the fastest lap time on the intermediate tyre, 1:25.197. 1.5 seconds clear of his nearest challenger, which is Lando Norris, who continues to show pace in that McLaren. Leclerc, Hülkenberg, Bottas, the top five. Zhou, who is the reason for the current red flag, and that is his day done, getting beached in the gravel in the runoff area of the final corner. Gasly 7th, Tsunoda, Albon, Hamilton, the top 10. Sergeant Liam Lawson, who is making his Grand Prix debut on Sunday in place of Daniel Ricciardo, after Ricciardo has broken a bone in his hand due to that crash yesterday in free practice 2. And Piastri 13th, and the last of the runners to set a competitive lap time. Red flag conditions as we get these images shown to us of the North Sea. We're very near the coastline here in the dunes north of Zandvoort, and there does look to be a little bit of more rain coming in from the sea line. But then as I look out the commentary box, there's more blue sky again coming out from beneath the white puffy clouds. So it really is changing left, right and centre, as we also get another view of Zhou careering into the gravel. And actually, not a good time for Zhou.
I'm beached, guys.
Joe, can you continue?
No, I'm beached. Sorry. Really wet there.
It's wet everywhere, isn't it? But yeah, he certainly was beached. He was trying to get out, he was trying to drive forward and trying to reverse, but that gravel is just a bit too deep for an F1 car to escape.
Not a good time for Zhou, though, because I think there is a little bit of pressure mounting on his seat at Alfa Romeo, especially looking over the next couple of seasons, and when Audi then come in and take the Sauber entry. But Sauber currently running the Alfa Romeo outfit. Zhou has his contract ends at the end of this year. Second season in Formula One. Has shown, I think, some good flashes of pace, but hasn't seemed to have had those standout results compared to his teammate Valtteri Bottas. But the car he's had hasn't always been consistently there, though, has it?
No, it hasn't. They've had a bit of an up and down season, really, haven't they, as a team? But I think he's done pretty well to Bottas. You know, Bottas is a race winner. Okay, everyone's going to say, yeah, but he was in the best car with Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton sort of walked all over him, which, you know, he out-qualified and beat Lewis Hamilton fair and square at certain times. So Bottas has out-qualified Zhou at 7 times, whereas Zhou has out-qualified Bottas 5 times, and the gap average between them in the qualifying sessions has been less than a tenth. So I think he's still done a really good job. Again, with those seats down towards the tail end of the field, okay, maybe excluding Haas because they've tried the younger drivers and it's not worked out, it all comes down to money. I'm not saying that he is there purely just on money, because he's got the talent as well, and he's proved that he can win races in Formula 2 and that he can compete pretty well in Formula 1. But, you know, that's a team that need the finances, so maybe that will aid to keeping him there for the next few years.
Yeah, well, I think he was hoping to get a contract renewal sorted in the summer break for Zhou Guanyu. We haven't heard anything publicly, at least, so there are a few contenders, I think, for that seat. Alfa Romeo and Sauber have a good relationship with the F2 Formula 2 front runner Teo Porchera at the moment, and of course with Audi coming in, will they want a German presence in their driver lineup perhaps when they come in and take over in 2026? So we wait and see. So there are a few pieces of the puzzle still to be put in place when it comes to the driver market. I mentioned Logan Sargent's seat at the Williams under pressure. Lewis Hamilton, of course, his contract comes to the end of this year, and we've heard absolutely nothing about it. So
I think they just like playing games, don't they? They like everybody getting everyone to wait, teasing us. You know, Lewis is walking around the paddock looking pretty happy. I think they've got no rush. Why have they got a rush to tell us? Or they, you know, if I was them, I'd make everybody wait just for a laugh, why not? So, but I think I would be surprised if we don't see him there next year.
No confirmation. They're keeping Stumm for the time being, but that is the sound of engines being fired up once more because the red flag is over and we are back to green here in free practice 3. The final practice session ahead of qualifying for the Dutch Grand Prix later this afternoon here in Zandvoort. 25 minutes and 40 seconds remain as the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz makes his way out onto the track. He missed FP1, of course, to make way for Robert Schwartzman, the Ferrari reserve driver, and that's part of the rule that is now in place over the last couple of seasons, where all teams have to run 2 rookie drivers in 2 FP1 sessions throughout the year. So Schwartzman making his first of those. But actually, it's been not a brilliant weekend so far, it seems, for both Ferrari drivers. Seem to be lacking a little bit of pace kind of everywhere. Complaints from Leclerc in FP1 and 2 about the rear being very unstable. The car hasn't particularly looked like it's been strong around any of these corners here. So Ferrari, it seems, I think, a little bit on the back foot.
Yeah, I mean, they really struggled yesterday, and especially in FP1 when they were out there on the medium tyre. It did look a handful, and even Robert Schwartzman was on the radio complaining about oversteer. We saw Charles Leclerc really trying to hustle his Ferrari around the track, and it just looked like it was skating around on ice. It just looked like it had no grip. And looking at the timing sheets now, Leclerc is sitting in 3rd place, 2 seconds off Max Verstappen on the wet tyre. Carlos Sainz yet to set a lap time on the board. But I think we can't take anything from the timing screen at the moment, with Ferrari sitting there in 3rd, because everyone is still trying to get to grips with these wet conditions. But it's not looking good for Ferrari this weekend.
No, this is the sound of Carlos Sainz, who was trying to turn in for turn 1 but couldn't get it done, had to bail out of it and goes straight to the runoff area, manages to keep it going, and he'll rejoin, but that lap then ruined for Carlos Sainz, who just rejoins behind the McLaren that races past on the racing line. So Sainz then, again, another Ferrari falling foul of turn 1 and going straight on. Ferraris then seem to be a little bit in trouble. Rosanna in the pits.
Thanks very much. You can hear the sound of Sergio Perez's Red Bull heading out on intermediate tyres, so the green ringed rubber. Meanwhile, his teammate Max Verstappen is out of the car. He's got his baseball cap on. He's been having a chat with Dr. Helmut Marko.
Yeah, had a look up.
And that was Carlos Sainz just saying he had a lock-up that was going into turn 1. We had to bail out and take to the runoff area, but he rejoined safe enough.
More difficulties for Ferrari, and the engine cover of Max Verstappen's Red Bull has been taken off by the mechanics. They're now just popping it back on and securing it, and Max is now putting on his balaclava. He's got his headphones going in, not to listen to any tunes, of course, although there has been some amazing music this weekend. He's just getting ready to get back in the car. So a few little tweaks going on for Max.
I think condition is good for the Inter.
That's Yuki Tsunoda saying he's happy right now to go to the intermediate tyre. This is the sound of Tsunoda in the Alpha Tauri as he makes his way round turn 8 and into 9. He's on the wet tyre at the moment, so he's thinking, okay, yes, let's quickly switch to the Inters. Tsunoda has been out there. He's done, it's about six or so laps already throughout the session so far. So currently with a fastest time of a 1:28.8, which was on the wet tyre. So I imagine we'll see him peel into the pit lane once he rounds this final right-hander, the double right-hander with the 18-degree banking that brings you back onto the main straight. And does he dive into the pit lane? No, he does not. He carries on going to complete his lap and goes actually 4th fastest. So he finds a lot of time there, but thinking he can find some more time on the intermediate tyre. Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, the top 5. Bottas, Zhou, Gasly, Albon, Lawson, Hamilton, the top 11. Sargent, Piastri and Sainz. After he bailed out of that lap, he came into the pits. He's 14th fastest. Russell yet to set a competitive lap time, as is Perez, Ocon, Alonso, Magnussen, who caused the red flag early doors and is no longer taking part in this session. and Lance Stroll, who has been in and out of the pits and only done 3 laps so far. And Stroll's had a bit of a struggle so far coming into this weekend, not feeling very well. It sounded like they had power unit issues in FP1 and carried over into FP2. So Stroll and Aston, perhaps another one on the back foot too.
Yeah, I think so. And now the track is, there seems to be a lot less standing water out there at the moment. So I think Tsunoda's definitely right. It was intermediates way before he come on the radio and said, I think it's good enough for intermediates. As Perez, that is the sound you can hear at the moment. He's heading down into turn 11, just misses the apex ever so slightly there, gets it in with the camber at 12. And that's the nature of this circuit, because there is so many cambered corners, Harry. It's difficult to really adjust your line. All you've got to do, and a good demonstration that we've just witnessed there of Perez at turn 13, is just turn slightly later as he gets a little bit of a twitch going through 14, which is a place that you certainly don't want to have a twitch as he heads across the line and pops up into P9. But Piastri's just jumped up to P4, which puts Perez back down to 10.
Yeah, and that's a good lap from Piastri as well in the McLaren, especially after the team breaking curfew and working on that McLaren after he crashed it into the wall in turn 3 yesterday. So Piastri then trying to make up a little bit of lost ground from then. And AlphaTauri, actually the other team to break curfew last night, but they both get that as a freebie. They were breaking it for Liam Lawson, of course, to get him ready. And it's continuing to get better and better for McLaren as Lando Norris takes over as the fastest man on the circuit at the moment. A 1:25.0 for the British McLaren racer on the intermediate tyre. Goes just over a tenth clear of Max Verstappen, as we heard from Rosanna, is in out of his car in the garage. Leclerc also in the pits. He's third. Who else is in the pits? Carlos Sainz. Zhou is out of this session. Gasly's in the pits, along with Ocon, and Magnussen also out of this session as well.
Yeah, Piastri, just looking at the timing screens now, purple in the middle sector. The sound you can hear is George Russell. So he is yet to really put a time on the board. He's heading now into turn 3, not following Lewis Hamilton's line and staying to the high line around there as he now comes out and heads through the quite fast and bumpy section of turn 4, 5 and 6. You see sparks flying as well out the back of his car. 7/10 off though in the first sector.
I'm just looking at who's done the most amount of laps, and unsurprisingly Liam Lawson is well and truly up there, trying to get as much track time as he can before he's going into qualifying. But they're looking at who hasn't done anything really. Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, only been out there twice. So I'm wondering if all is not well down at Alpine. We'll try and find that out with Esteban Ocon, who has only been registered as going out twice at the moment. Alonso has only been out 4 times and is currently out on the track at least, but Ocon very much in the pit lane. George Russell coming to the end of his lap. He's also a bit low on the mileage count, but is out there now with 18 minutes remaining around the final corner. The rear end of that Mercedes looks a little bit uneasy as he tries to get his foot onto the throttle in these tricky conditions, but he manages to keep the car pointing in the straight direction and comes across the line and finds time and goes 8th fastest, a 1:27.414 for George Russell. But Oscar Piastri, who was already looking fast and is 3rd fastest at the moment, is finding even more time, has gone purple in the middle sector.
So just an update from Alpine, just dropped a text to them, and apparently Ocon has decided not to do much running in the wet because he thinks that qualifying will be dry and they want to focus on doing some dry running if we do get some dry running in this session, which is looking unlikely. So that's the update there from Camp Ocon.
Interesting. All right, thank you very much, Alice. I think Rosanna is also outside Alpine in the pits because Gasly also hasn't been out very much either.
Absolutely. Esteban Ocon has just headed out on the intermediate tyres. He stayed in the car during that sort of lull that we've just had. Pierre Gasly was out of the car though, but he's now got his helmet on. He's just being belted back into the car. and I'm sure he'll want to get out there as well. But it's so tricky, isn't it, guys? Because it's dry now. Qualifying's meant to be quite windy. That's the emoji I've got on my weather app at the moment. And then it's meant to brighten up at 4 o'clock when the checkered flag will have fallen at the end of qualifying. And then tomorrow it's looking rainy. So this session is important really for tomorrow, but also so important to dial yourself in for what could actually then be a dry session for qualifying. Really a bit of a headache for the teams and drivers.
Yeah, it's about trying to find that right balance, isn't it, of not pushing too much in these kind of conditions where you end up like a Zhou Guanyu and you bid it into the gravel, but also collecting enough data to be able to find some pace for qualifying. This is the sound of just a replay of Fernando Alonso, who continues straight on at turn 1, which is proving quite tricky for a few of the cars out there to get it stopped in time. Also, the McLarens have been exchanging fastest lap times while we've been chatting away. Norris now fastest, a 1:23.6, 1.2 seconds clear of Piastri, and Perez, Verstappen, Russell, the top 5.
Yeah, I mean, as a driver, I would want to go out because, like Rosanna said, it's expected to be mixed conditions. So maybe Esteban's sort of going to be forced to go out in this practice session. And a lot of drivers are locking up into turn 1. And one thing to note heading into turn 1, it is pretty bumpy. And actually, you would naturally in the wet want to try and brake off the rubber, but actually that's difficult to do going into turn 1, because if you do move off the rubber and from a driver's point of view, driving down the track, move to the right-hand side, it's actually bumpier offline. So that's probably why we're seeing a lot of drivers sort of staying traditionally on that dry line. And a lot of them are locking up because it is naturally bumpy into there. So quite a few demonstrations of drivers trying to get rid of the lockups and having to take to the escape road.
Yeah, well, Carlos Sainz was one of those who we ride on board with now, who is on the intermediate tyre and not finding a huge amount of time in Sector 1 as he makes his way through the right-left chicane of 11 and 12 and just really struggles to get the power down on exit, doesn't he? The steering wheel moving all which way as he tries to balance the car, and then round the final corner. Found time in the middle sector, did Carlos Sainz. Let's see what he can do across the line. Currently 14th fastest. As he crosses the line now, it's enough for 12th fastest as Leclerc, his teammate, is on his outlap.
Yeah, but these McLarens are looking so good in these wet conditions. Looked really good yesterday in the dry as Albon actually pops up into P6, but it's the McLarens that are really showing the way. Norris and Piastri split by 1/10 of a second, and then Perez is a good nearly 7/10 off Norris, and Verstappen, I think he's slowly winding up at the moment. He's still 1.5 seconds off Norris, but he had a bit of a slow last sector, did Verstappen, so I'm not sure of it a mistake, because we've got a yellow flag in Sector 1.
It's an Alpine. It's Esteban Ocon who has gone straight on at turn 1, like Carlos Sainz did before him, like Alonso did, like Charles Leclerc. As Charles Leclerc nearly, the exit of turn 1 loses the rear end quite dramatically, but keeps it going as in the background the Alpine manages to find the runoff area and rejoin safely. So after not really wanting to come out too much in these wet conditions, Ocon back out there and immediately finding a little bit of trouble. We are down a couple of cars. Kevin Magnussen not taking part in this session after he found the wall on his outlap. Zhou Guanyu found the gravel and is also out as well, so they are not on track. In the pits, though, Tsunoda, and that is the only driver in the pits at the moment. Everybody else is out there in these last 15 or so minutes. This is the sound of Esteban Ocon. And having that lock up there, so as soon as he touches the brakes, the front right just locks up, and he did hit the wall. He touches the wall, and it's a bit of a soft blow, but there's nothing he can do about that one. But everything's locked up.
Those Tech Pro barriers are quite soft, and because he's hit it he's hit it straight on, really. He should be okay, but we've got a yellow flag out now in Sector 3, and I think that's heading into turn 14, Harry. Liam Lawson is facing the direction he certainly shouldn't be, and that's a difficult place to turn around, and they have red flagged the session because it's kind of blind there. So a good job by race control. I think that's the best thing there to red flag the session.
Yeah, it's Liam Lawson who is taking part this weekend in his first Grand Prix, and that was a bit of a tricky place for him to be on the inside on the lower, right on the slope of the banked corner, but he does manage then to find a gap and spin it back round in the right way. So we do have the red flag, which hopefully will come in fairly quickly as Lawson then comes into the pits, the New Zealander, the first New Zealand driver to take part in Formula One since Brendan Hartley did for the same team, then known as Toro Rosso. So Liam Lawson taking up that mantle now and replacing Daniel Ricciardo, who we send all of our well wishes to after sustaining a broken bone in his hand after his crash in turn 3 yesterday in FP2. So that is why Red Bull's reserve driver Lawson has been called up, and we're just getting another look at what happened to Lawson, Alice.
Yeah, so I think he's just got a bit too far onto the curb. We have seen quite a few drivers use that curb, but obviously Lawson hit it in a way, and maybe different amount of throttle, as he doesn't quite get into the apex, and yeah, he just touches the curb there, bashes into the barrier on the right-hand side of the track, but I think he's escaped any damage there, so pretty lucky as he did spin it back round during the red flag. And as I said, I think it's a good idea that they did red flag it, because if he's turned around there and everyone's blind coming round, that could have been a nasty accident.
Lawson is back in the garage, and the team just having a little check over of the number 40 AlphaTauri. 40 is the number that has been allocated to Liam Lawson for this weekend. The last time we saw a 40 race in a Grand Prix on Sunday was Paul di Resta in the Williams back in 2017, I think it was, when he replaced Felipe Massa midway through the weekend in the Hungarian Grand Prix, and did an all right job.
So your favourite drivers, isn't it?
I don't have favourites, Alice, you know that. But that's the last time we saw that number, for those of you who want a little bit of data crunching there. Norris and Piastri, though, in the McLarens, currently 1 and 2 and looking very good, less than a tenth between them. But that's the thing. I think qualifying is going to be a little bit juicy, because at a track like this, the characteristics very similar to Hungary, to Monaco. And in those qualifying sessions, we have seen a little bit more of an even playing field. It hasn't been clear-cut that Max Verstappen is going to get pole position. It was looking like it might be Fernando Alonso in Monaco for a small moment, until Verstappen used all of his talent and then some to find a few thousandths and go and set pole. Hungary, Lewis Hamilton took pole position. And actually, I think based on what we've seen so far, the McLarens are in the hunt here for maybe knocking off Verstappen for pole. I don't think they've got the race pace to match him, but qualifying could get good.
Yeah, I mean, certainly depending on weather conditions, but I think McLaren's look good in the wet or the dry weather. I think maybe you could say Verstappen might have a little bit of the edge on the McLarens in the dry. Max didn't seem too panicked yesterday about his pace and finishing second, but they're looking pretty handy, aren't they, the McLarens at the moment in these wet conditions. I don't think Max has really strung a lap together, to be honest, in these sort of conditions. So he'll be heading back out. Actually, he's on his out lap now as the session has now gone green. But we are starting to see, Harry, a bit of a dry line, like a train track line, which is one of those, as a driver, you go, right, now I know that it's going to be quicker very soon on the slick tyre. However, if you put a tiny part of your wheel onto the wet stuff, that is you then being a passenger and spinning off into the gravel, or even, as we've seen already, the tyre barriers. So it'll be one of those, who's going to jump first to go on the slick tyre?
This is what we want for the race, though, isn't it? Because it's who's brave enough to make the call first, isn't it? To read the conditions. And I think I was listening to a podcast coming into the weekend where Fernando Alonso was speaking, and he was asked who, out of all of the teammates you've had, if you could take a characteristic from somebody, who would it be? And he identified Jenson Button. Because of his read on weather conditions, and how Jenson Button was always able to make the right call when were the conditions right for either a slick or a wet tyre, and he always managed to get it bang on. I mean, one of the great examples of Button and somehow winning the Canadian Grand Prix in 2011, the longest Grand Prix in history, and started from the back and had about 3-4 pit stops, damaged contact with his teammate Lewis Hamilton, and still won the race on the final lap.
I feel like George Russell tries to be a
bit Jenson Button,
a bit Jenson Button, doesn't he? We're going out. I think it was Canada as well that he went out on the slick tyre first, but before everybody else. But interestingly, looking at that last sector, still seems pretty damp there. There isn't much of a dry line. So looking at sector 2, going into sector 2 probably seems the driest, as the sound you can hear now is Max Verstappen. He's in the intermediate tyre, so let's see what he can do now as he heads out of turn 3.
Yeah, out from the banking, and this is where we saw right at the start of the session a lot of drivers struggling to get the power down and finding the wall. Yellow flag in sector 1, and it's a Ferrari. It's Charles Leclerc who has come a cropper of the barriers. We haven't seen what's happened, but I can predict he's probably locked up going into turn 1, not been able to get it slowed down in time, and then brushed the same Tech Pro barrier that Esteban Ocon did just a few moments ago. He has managed to reverse it out and get going again. Doesn't look like there's too much damage to the front wing of that Ferrari, so I'm sure he'll rejoin and come into the pits and get it checked over. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen, fastest of anybody in the first sector.
Shock.
And he continues that as well into the middle sector as well. She's losing a little time in the last mini sectors of sector 2, but overall still fastest. So maybe he's just keeping a little bit back for these tricky conditions as he comes through the final 2 corners, round the final 18-degree banking that brings you out onto the main straight. This is the sound riding on board with the 2-time reigning champion in his back garden. Max Verstappen crosses the line and finds 9/10 of a second ahead of Lando Norris. Verstappen then fastest on that intermediate tyre ahead of Norris, Piastri, Perez and Alonso, the top 5.
So just to put it into context, 1:11.3 was Lando Norris's fastest time yesterday in free practice 2, and Max Verstappen's in a 1:22.7. So track conditions are still quite a bit off, but we're not going to say too far off the crossover, as the noise you can hear is, well, a Ferrari about to touch the barrier. He didn't touch the barrier. That must have been Esteban Ocon's tap of the barrier. So
I apologise, Charles. I take it all back.
Leclerc just about managed to keep it out of the barrier, as Esteban Ocon now is going to charge down the main straight and hope that he's not going to make contact with that barrier again.
So that's the second time we've seen Charles Leclerc go straight on at turn 1, and just underlining the impression that we got from yesterday, that now in the wet conditions compared to the dry yesterday, it doesn't seem to matter what level of grip the track has. The Ferrari's a bit of a dog this weekend, it would seem.
And it's a bit unlucky as well, even because Leclerc has struggled in these changeable conditions throughout the year. I thought he managed to kind of claw a bit back. We've had a lot of wet races and a lot of wet weekends so far this season, more than I can remember this many in 13, 12 races that we've had so far. So Leclerc down in 16th at the moment. His teammate Sainz has just gone 7th fastest, 1.8 seconds off the pace. So Leclerc then on the intermediate tyre. Everyone's on the intermediate tyre. So Leclerc then, struggling with Ferrari seemingly on the back foot a little bit. Bottas is going quickly though.
I was just about to say, someone to look at. I had to double take at the timing screen there, and Bottas just goes purple in the first sector, but then saying that, half a second quicker. Max Verstappen just exits sector 1 half a second quicker than Bottas, and the Alpine of Esteban Ocon not looking too happy as he's going to exit the final corner, currently lying in 19th place. He's going to pop up only up to 17th, 3.7 seconds off the pace.
Yeah, his teammate Gasly up in 9th. Leclerc has just gone 6th fastest at the moment behind Norris, but Verstappen is still fastest, but George Russell now has snuck up into 2nd place, 0.02 of a second behind Verstappen, then Piastri. Perez just got up into 4th, but he's still over 6.5 tenths back from his teammate, and Norris the top 5, Gasly, Sainz, Leclerc, Bottas, Alonso the top 10. The 2 Williams is fairly close together. Albon ahead of Sargent, 11th and 12th. Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Tsunoda the top 15. Stroll, Ocon, Lawson 18th of the drivers still remaining in this session, with Zhou and Magnussen out earlier on with 2.5 minutes left. Max Verstappen has just found even more time. He's got 1.1 seconds over George Russell now, but Alice, it's nearly 1.8 seconds ahead of his teammate Perez.
Yeah, Perez is not enjoying these conditions, is he? As Charles Leclerc is getting a little bit of traffic from one of the McLarens, which I think was Piastri, and now he's decided to absolutely bail on his lap. But yeah, Perez is not looking particularly happy, and just looking at the sector times as well, he's not lighting up the timing screen. He's actually probably going to get jumped by Lando Norris, and Leclerc was on a better lap as well until that last sector. So, yeah, Perez, there is more pressure mounts upon his shoulders.
Formula Stu, hashtag BBCF1 has followed up on my useless stat about Paul di Resta in the number 40. If Liam Lawson scores a point this weekend, he'll be the first F1 driver to do so in car number 40 since Gabriele Tarquini in Mexico in 1989. So, thank you very much for that. And he has prefaced that with useless stat department. So we're all here for you with a minute and a half left of this FP3 session, which has been fairly fascinating with the rain coming down and then easing off slightly, a bit of a dry line developing, but some parts of the track wetter than others, and flaws being showcased. And some of the teams, Ferrari in particular, seem to be struggling in the wet or the dry. George Russell seems to have come alive actually a little bit more in these wet conditions. Currently second fastest. He's personal best now, sector 1 and sector 2. He's just about to come across the line in his Mercedes. Finds time, 1:22.0 is the time across, which gets the gap down to Verstappen, just over 3.5 tenths of a second now between himself and the Dutchman. Norris and Piastri, the two McLarens, continue to look good, and Piastri is on an absolute rocket of a lap right now, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, but Verstappen is just coming through sector 1 as well and finding even more time. So we're going to see a bit of a change up in the order, maybe not for P1, but certainly for those behind in these last 30 seconds or so. Leclerc does find time, goes third fastest, but is immediately displaced by Oscar Piastri, who did find a huge chunk of time in that middle sector. Verstappen's going for another one, though. He's fastest of anybody in sector 1, losing a little bit of time actually in sector 2, so we'll see where he's at. Yeah, he's still a tenth and a half up on himself in the middle sector, but then he throws it all away as he comes into the right-left chicane of 11 and 12, and the car just simply doesn't turn right, and he has to bail out into the gravel.
Yeah, a little bit too late on the brakes there for Max. That front right tyre just locking up. But Ferrari, I think, are going to hope that they're going to pray for rain, surely, because they were well out of the top 10 yesterday during free practice, especially Sainz was really struggling, and now they're sitting in 5th for Charles Leclerc and 9th for Carlos Sainz. So I think they're going to hope that maybe the rain does come for qualifying. And the track's certainly drying and developing, as look at the timing screen now is just lighting up with pretty much greens as the checker flag now comes out, Harry.
Yeah, it is out. The clock is counted down, so final lap's being set. Alonso just got in there to go third fastest. I was a little bit worried about the Aston Martins for a minute because they've been a little bit anonymous so far this weekend, but Alonso just goes third fastest, but he's a second off Verstappen. Perez found a good chunk of time in the middle sector, but then I think has either had a mistake or he's still got personal best, so he might still be pushing to the very end. Piastri goes fourth. Hamilton finding a little bit of time as well, but he's down in 13th at the moment, but we'll see what he's got on his final run. Albon in the Williams goes up into 4th. Perez rounds the final corner now. I think he lost a bit too much time in the middle sector, comes across the line, a second off his teammate, but it is good enough for third fastest, and Hamilton rockets up to 5th with a 1:22.7, so he's still a fair chunk off his teammate though. Russell 3.5 tenths behind Verstappen, Hamilton over a second behind his teammate. This is the sound of Max Verstappen in his Red Bulls. We get a replay of where his lap came a cropper in the chicane, and as he rides through the gravel.
Yeah, he just got a little bit greedy going into that final chicane, and he just started to turn in as well with a little bit too much front brake on, and that's when then that inside tyre, the direction that you're turning, comes a little bit light, and then you can see it snatching. And George Russell nearly has a little bit of a moment, pretty similar really, direction that Liam Lawson was going out of turn 13, but he managed to keep it in a straight line, and I'm sure this is another
first corner is so bad.
Okay, copy.
Replay of Charles Leclerc going off. Well, that's going to be the third time now locking up into turn 1, and as I said, it is pretty bumpy there going into the braking zone, so the Ferrari not happy there on the brakes.
No, as Lewis Hamilton gets a little bit out of shape as well on his fast run. Well, the practice starts now are taking place, because that is the end of FP3, the last of the practice sessions before we see what everyone has truly got come qualifying a little later on. But at the end of FP3, It is unsurprisingly Max Verstappen who is fastest, ahead of George Russell, Sergio Perez, the top 3, Alonso, Hamilton, the top 5, Albon, Piastri, Bottas, Leclerc and Lando Norris in the McLaren rounds out the top 10. Pierre Gasly in the Alpine is 11th in front of Sainz, Tsunoda, Sargent and Hulkenberg in 15th. Esteban Ocon 16th in front of Stroll, and Liam Lawson in his first ever FP3 session finishes up in 18th, ahead of Zhou Guan Yu, who got beached in that session and couldn't take part in the rest of it, and Kevin Magnussen early doors on his outlap found the wall into the barrier, and that was the FP3 over for K-Mag in the Haas. But those are your 20 drivers from FP3.
Well, thank you very much, Harry Benjamin. I tell you what, that was not an easy session for many, many people out there. Of course, Max Verstappen made it easy. He's made every single session of every single race seem easy as well. But Rosanna Tennant has scooted out of the pit lane to join me just by the cars that are doing their practice starts. And OK, Max Verstappen leads the way, but actually behind him there's some real intrigue, and that wasn't simple for anyone.
No, definitely not. A really tricky session. The conditions changing. We had torrential rain, very windy and blustery. Like you said at the beginning of the show, we're right by the seaside here, so very, very windy. And for the likes of Liam Lawson coming in for his first proper Formula One session, that was tricky. We saw him spin the car around. Hopefully he hasn't got too nervous heading into qualifying. But I'm really intrigued by George Russell. Yesterday a little bit off the pace, still was happy with how Friday went, but wow, what a result for him. P2, a bit of a turnaround, and one to watch as we get closer to quali, Jenny.
Yeah, I fear for Liam Lawson. I think we all do in that AlphaTauri. It's such a big seat to try and fill, but he'll go out there and he'll do his very best. Qualifying, I don't think, is going to be a clean session. I foresee red flags, funnily enough, but make sure you join us. Qualifying will get underway online at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock local time. We'll bring you all the action. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.